This is CBN NewsWatch.
And thanks for joining us for CBN NewsWatch. I'm Heather Sells. The president is doing very well. Good news for the president and the country today. He is doing, quote, extremely well and showing no symptoms of COVID-19 a day after being released from Walter Reed Medical Center. That is according to the president's physician, who says Trump's vitals are stable. George Thomas has the latest.
Hours after the president's return to the White House Monday evening, cleaning crews in hazmat suits were sanitizing and wiping down the press briefing room in the West Wing. At least 13 members of Trump's inner circle, including his press secretary Kayleigh McEnany, contracted COVID. Masks are now required in the West Wing. The president, back after spending 3 days at Walter Reed Medical Center, is also back in campaign mode, tweeting that he's looking forward to debating his Democratic challenger next week in Miami. Trump, who reportedly is still contagious, will continue his recovery at the White House. The president urging folks not to fear the disease that has claimed over 210,000 American lives so far.
Don't let it dominate you. Don't be afraid of it. You're going to beat it. We have the best medical equipment, we have the best medicines, all developed recently.
The White House physician insisting the president is back to his old self, but warning that his health remains at risk.
Though he may not entirely be out of the woods yet, the team and I agree that all our evaluations, and most importantly, his clinical status, support the president's safe return home, where he'll be surrounded by world-class medical care 24/7.
With the president out of the hospital, Democratic presidential challenger Joe Biden stepped up his critique, telling an NBC town hall audience that Trump still doesn't get it.
Now, what is this macho thing? I'm not going to wear a mask. What's the deal here? Be patriotic, for God's sake.
Mr. Biden, trying to capitalize on having the campaign trail to himself, is in Florida and traveling to traditionally Republican states in the days ahead. The Trump campaign responding by deploying the vice president and members of the Trump family to key battleground states across the country while the president recovers. Vice President Pence is in Salt Lake City for his debate Wednesday night with Kamala Harris. The two will be separated by a sheet of plexiglass and 12 feet of social distancing. George Thomas, CBN News.
And joining us now is CBN senior medical reporter Lori Johnson. Lori, the president's doctor says he's not out of the woods, but well enough to be released. What's your take on how he's doing right now?
Well, the president's doctor, Dr. Sean Connolly, did release a statement recently that said he had a very good night last night. He slept well, rested comfortably, and that today he is showing no symptoms, that all of his vital signs are normal. His blood oxygen level is between 95 and 97%, which is good. He did not require supplemental oxygen and said overall everything is looking good. Of course, we know that a lot of times COVID patients feel better initially, and then at around days 7 to 10, sometimes between days 5 and 10, they take a turn for the worse. So he's going to be monitored very, very closely. We do know that he's had those 3 drugs. We had another dose of remdesivir today, and so that's going to help him prevent him having any downturns.
Yeah, and it's so interesting because I think it's twice in the last 24 hours he's essentially told the public not to be afraid. Is that a good public health message, or how do you think that's resonating with people?
Well, I wish he had said, don't be afraid, do be concerned, because we know that there is a big difference between fear and concern. And yes, fear is bad. We shouldn't be afraid. We shouldn't be living in a state of anxiety. We shouldn't be worried. That's a biblical message. Jesus told us not to worry. And we know from a health standpoint that stress kills. Stress is terrible for our health. Having said that, we should be concerned. The difference between being afraid and being concerned is that emotional component. Concern is unemotional, but taking action. And in the president's remarks, he did say, be careful. So not being afraid, it doesn't mean don't be concerned. And we should be concerned and we should take actions. And the president isn't saying don't wear a mask, don't social distance. In fact, he's saying the opposite.
And just briefly, Tony Perkins was at that infamous Rose Garden ceremony at the White House. He did have COVID earlier this year, says he has antibodies now, says those of us who have antibodies should be out in the public. What's your take on that?
Well, doctors say that's probably true. true, but not definitely. So it's pretty safe to assume that if you've had COVID, then you have the antibodies afterwards and that you are immune to it. The big question is how long? We know that some antibodies stay in our bodies for our entire lives. We know that other ones, such as with the flu, only for 6 months, and some coronaviruses, Heather, such as associated with the common cold, only stay in our body for 3 or 4 months. So it remains to be seen how long those antibodies remain in our system.
All right, that's helpful. Thanks, Lori Johnson.
Sure.
Well, be sure to stay with CBN News for continuing coverage on President Trump's COVID-19 recovery right here on the CBN News Channel and on CBNNews.com and our CBN News app. Well, since the president announced his diagnosis last Friday, hospitalizations are climbing in 35 states. In New York City, all public schools located in the 9 zip codes that have been deemed COVID hotspots are now closing. In California, however, students in San Ramon Valley organized a sit-in protest asking for in-person instruction to start. They were holding signs with the message "Back to School Now" and "Back to Campus."
It's way harder to learn on a computer screen. I can't ask a question as easily. I can't go after class as easily. I can't see my counselor as easily. I have to set up all these meetings.
The superintendent says the district will spend the month of October figuring out how to deliver both in-person and online instruction starting January 5th. Well, not only have universities had to rethink education in the COVID era, but campus ministries have had to rethink ministry. I spoke with Greg Howe, the director of external relations at InterVarsity, for more on this topic. So you have had to really rethink ministry during this time of the pandemic. You're having to address universities that have all online education or that have some in-person, maybe some online hybrid models. How have you begun to adapt your ministry to students who are undergoing all these changes?
Well, the most important thing we want to do is invite students into a community that's following Jesus, opening up the scriptures and praying together. And so we've, like many churches, have moved online, and in the spring, 97% of all of our chapters moved online with Bible studies and with large worship group meetings. And this fall, we've done the same thing. We've also tried to mobilize students in a different way. So, last year or the last 50 years, you would have met Christian groups on the quads, and you'd have signed up if you had an interest. And this year, we decided to go online with an online contact card, inviting students anywhere around the country to say, if you wanted to find a Christian fellowship, come look us up. And one of the great things we've discovered is we were giving contact cards on 559 campuses that we don't have a presence on. So this was 1 or 2 students saying, I want a Christian fellowship, but I don't see anything here. Can you help me? And so even though COVID has constrained what we can do on campus, it's actually opening the doors for us to reach many more campuses than we'd have gotten to this year.
Wow, that's fantastic news. And how are you finding that these online Bible studies are working? Are they students at the same campus? How big are they? Are they able to be effective?
Yeah, it really varies. Most of them are still focused on a geographic campus because our hope is as soon as the pandemic begins to subside, those students will then start to meet in person. But some of our small groups we've designed to reach nationally. So our athletes group, Black Campus Ministry, one of our focused ministries, and many of the other groups have said, let's do a few nationally based ones. And so we've had small groups of anywhere between 5 and 50 people. And the great thing is we're finding students who used to say, I'm too busy to show up at a Bible study are showing up now. They both have a little bit more time on their hands because they're not as busy on campus, but also the pandemic is raising questions about where are they going to find security, where do they find community, and what are they putting their hope in? So we're actually seeing a lot of spiritual openness. In fact, of the contact cards that we got across the nation, 1,000 students told us in the first 3 weeks they wanted help to be better evangelists because they saw an opportunity and a need. And so we immediately started creating training programs so that those 1,000 students could get deployed right at the beginning of their college careers. Sharing the good news about Jesus and the hope they have.
Wow. And talk about some of the challenges of this time, too. We know students are struggling. They're more isolated. Do you feel like some students perhaps are falling through the cracks who you might have been able to reach out before? What are you doing to try and meet some of these really deep needs of students at this time?
It is a big issue. A study just came out that said 25% of all 18 to 22-year-olds have considered suicide in the last 30 days. And so this is an unprecedentedly high number. And I think students are experiencing, as you mentioned, isolation. They're experiencing the stress of an ever-changing environment. And many of their dreams and hopes have been put on hold. And so InterVarsity is doing two things. One, we're really trying to focus on online and, where possible, in-person community, because we think the best spiritual and mental health support we can provide a student is a group of loving Christians who come alongside them, pray for them, and care for them. We've also increased the speed at which we're releasing resources. So InterVarsity Press released a Bible study guide called Anxiety by one of our Nurses Christian Fellowship staff, designed to help students right away get into the scriptures to deal with those issues. We released a book by Sheila Wise Rowe called Healing from Racial Trauma, which helps students engage both the psychological and the social realities that they're facing in ways that honor Jesus and bring them deeper into scripture and community. And we're continuing to develop new resources as we go, drawing students, I hope, primarily into life-giving relationships with other Christians, but where appropriate, sending them to campus support systems and counseling services which exist and which are there. And I think when Christian students say, you know what, there's no shame in experiencing stress right now, and many of us are really struggling with anxiety or depression, can I pray for you and can I help you get connected to some professional resources that could help you? We're really serving students in multiple ways.
Well, that sounds like some really good resources there. Greg Howe with InterVarsity, thanks for your time.
Thanks so much.
Well, Generation Z is becoming known as the first post-Christian generation in the history of the United States. And alongside of that trend, some startling mental health numbers. In the past 10 years, teen suicide has gone up by 50%. 1 in 5 students are being bullied, and each day, 15,000 new teens are trying a drug. That's why youth ministry group Dare to Share is kicking off an initiative to spread hope. This Saturday, tens of thousands of teenagers will be inspired and unleashed in their communities to share the gospel in their circles of influence. The founder of Dare to Share, Greg Steyer, told CBN's The Prayer Link he believes God will strike revival in the next generation.
I think teens are looking for a cause, right? We see it in politics, we see it in the protests, we see it in, the movement to stop human trafficking and eradicating poverty. The greatest cause for a Christian teen is the cause of Christ, when he said, go and make disciples of all nations. And you know what? It really fixes every other cause, every other good cause. I mean, you can give the hungry bread and the bread of life. You can stop human trafficking and stop soul trafficking, because the biggest trafficker is Satan himself. And he's dragging a generation to hell and through hell. And so we want to mobilize Christian teens to reach their friends. So we're challenging youth leaders and parents, be a part of Dare to Share Live.
And you can catch more of this interview with Greg Steyer and learn more about Dare to Share Live by watching The Prayer Link. And you can see that tonight at 6:30 Eastern on the CBN News Channel. In other news, the election is 28 days away and early voting has already begun in some states. In Florida, Governor Ron DeSantis has extended the state's voter registration deadline after the state's online site crashed on Monday. Election officials say more than 500,000 attempts an hour hit the system. DeSantis ordered election, motor vehicle, and tax collectors officers to stay open until 7 p.m. tonight for anyone who wants to register in person. Meanwhile, the state is investigating the website crash. Coming up, how one company is going above and beyond to help those in need during the pandemic.
Hey, if you're tired and exhausted all day, you can't think clearly, and you really just need a cup or even a pot of coffee to get through your day, then join me, Dr. Josh Axe, for this new series where I'm going to teach you how to transform your diet and use essential oils and supplements to get a better night's sleep.
Wake up to your best life. Call 1-800-700-7000 to get your free DVD or booklet of Protect Your Sleep today.
It's about the competition.
I kind of put that pressure on myself, and I think people had expectations.
It's about overcoming.
We use this phrase all the time, keep chopping, keep practicing hard.
It's about going the distance.
I think as a father, it's my job, to lead, just be the best husband and father I can be.
Watch Going the Distance with Sean Brown Saturday night at 7:30 on the CBN News Channel.
Or Orphans Promise is committed to loving and serving at-risk children, to helping keep families together, and to creating opportunities for strong and sustainable communities around the world. We're working in over 60 countries around the world, and with your help, we can do even more. There's an old African proverb I love that says, if you want to run fast, run alone. But if you want to run far, run together. At Orphans Promise, we want to run far so we can touch the lives of as many orphaned and vulnerable children as possible. But we don't want to go alone. We're out to change the world, one child, one family, one community at a time. Will you join us?
During the pandemic, many Americans have experienced supply chain shortages and realized anew how much we depend on the trucking industry. And that industry, despite its pivotal role in the economy, has also taken a number of hits this year. And here to tell us more is Mike Kaczarski. He's the co-owner and vice president of JKC Trucking, one of the biggest trucking companies in the country. Mike, thanks for joining us.
Heather, thanks for having me on your show.
Well, truckers have kept the supply chain moving during this pandemic, but the industry's also taken a hit with so many restaurants shutting down. How are you doing at this point in time?
You know, it was a huge hit because when COVID hit and we had a shelter at home, the food supply, the service industry, service industry, which means restaurants, the hotels, the casinos, they all shut down, and all that came to a screeching halt overnight. So what that meant is that we had 50% less work. And when we had less volumes, that's when the rates started to drop. And I would say the worst week was Easter week. We had 50% volumes down. Rates were down over 50%, like 54%. And since then, it slowly started to uptick every week. Thank goodness. And then we had a little dip when Arizona and California closed, but it is coming back week by week. It's not 100% where it used to be, but it is slowly coming back with the supply food chain.
All right, well, that's good to hear. I know safety is another big issue. This summer, your company stopped delivering to areas that were holding protests and talking about defunding the police. Tell us about that decision and where things are at this point in time.
So JKC's number one priority is supporting our drivers' safety. You know, the majority of truck drivers, you know, do not support defunding the police. Truck driving is one of the top most dangerous, 10 most dangerous jobs. You know, most deliveries are done early in the morning when it's still dark outside, usually in bad neighborhoods with no one around. You know, CDL Life did a poll if drivers would deliver to defunded cities, and 79% said they would not. In my opinion, that percentage is a little low. It should be higher. You know, the police is the crucial part of protecting our drivers. You know, truck drivers do not have their own security. They are their own security. You know, let's say tomorrow we jumped into a truck and we had to deliver a whole truckload of COVID tests to a hospital downtown Portland. How will we do that? You know, who will we call upon to protect us? What will we do?
Yeah, that's a lot of concerns. I know some of your drivers would like to carry guns, but they're restricted there too. What are you hoping for with respect to that?
You know, the way I see it, these truck drivers are on the road for weeks and months at a time, and inside that cab is their home. At home, you can have a weapon to protect yourself, and I believe the truck drivers should be able to have a weapon inside their truck. You know, I remember the first time I drove to Los Angeles, I got to Long Beach early in the night, and I went to sleep in the sleeper behind me, and I was woken up in the middle of the night. Somebody broke my window, jumped into the driver's seat, and I was eye to eye with this gentleman that was in my truck. I didn't know if he was there to harm me or steal from me or what the deal was. I was very fortunate enough that I chased him off with a baseball bat. But I believe that, you know, these truckers should be able to protect themselves because that is their home for the time when they're at work.
Well, it's a really challenging life, and I think we all appreciate it all the more during this pandemic. Mike Kaczarski, thanks so much for your time.
Thank you so much.
Up next, why Americans are leaving big city life behind for a simpler life. We'll have that story when we come back.
Daddy?
Yeah, buddy?
How many nickels are in a dollar?
There are 20 nickels in a dollar.
How do birds fly? Does milk really make my bones stronger?
Yeah.
Daddy, when we die, will we go to heaven?
Do you have the answer to life's biggest question? Call the 700 Club. We'll help you find answers to the important questions life brings your way.
Watch breaking news, in-depth exclusive stories and programs from health to entertainment you won't find anywhere else. The CBN News Channel, a perspective you can trust. Enjoy credible news reporting from around the world. Discover inspiring programs and stories of hope, all in one place from a Christian perspective. The CBN News Channel, a perspective you can trust. To watch the CBN News Channel, download the app or visit cbnnewschannel.com.
Hello, I'm Dr. David Perlmutter, board-certified neurologist and #1 New York Times best-selling author. Wouldn't it be great to boost your energy, eliminate brain fog, and even reverse brain disease? Well, you can, and I'm going to show you how, along with some of the world's most well-respected brain experts in this DVD, Protect Your Brain.
Get Protect Your Brain, a free DVD only from the Christian Broadcasting Network, featuring experts on the cutting edge of neuroscience and brain health.
No matter how many times you've failed in the past, you really can do this.
In Protect Your Brain, you'll discover simple strategies to keep your brain young and healthy. Improve your memory. Discover the gut-brain connection. In Protect Your Brain. Get your free copy at cbn.com or call 1-800-700-7000.
If you want to improve the quality of your life, get the DVD Protect Your Brain and get it today.
Frustrated by coronavirus restrictions and frightened by the violence popping up in U.S. cities, many are abandoning the cities that they love for a life that they hope is simpler and safer. CBN senior Washington correspondent Tara Mergener has more.
Frustrated by coronavirus restrictions and frightened by the violence popping up in so many U.S. cities, many Americans are abandoning the cities they love for a life they hope is simpler and safer.
Near the foothills of the Blue Ridge Mountains sits Orange, Virginia. Population about 4,000. A place where a little girl can talk to her pet tortoise in the sunshine.
Wants to walk around.
Or play on a tree swing with her baby brother.
We really don't have any intentions to move back.
A far cry from the life the Nielsen family loved, but suddenly feared 75 miles away in the nation's capital.
It was terrifying because there were riots going on up in D.C. into Arlington, and then there were also riots happening down in Manassas, so we were sandwiched right in between.
Word that a controversial curriculum was coming to their public school this fall was the last straw. A month ago, Mark and Vanessa closed the door on D.C. for good.
My wife and I, we hold to conservative values and we value faith in our home.
The Nielsens joining what's seen as a growing urban exodus. After years of migration into U.S. cities, experts see the trend reversing itself. If riots, a pandemic, or the cost of living aren't pushing some to leave, more out-of-business signs are going up by the day. New York, L.A., and Chicago were among those seeing population decline even before COVID hit. According to Pew Research, 1 in 5 people nationwide have relocated in recent months or know someone who has, many now able to work from home.
Yeah, absolutely. So let's talk about timeline.
The phone calls keep coming into Abby Platt's Northern Virginia office.
They'll tell me right out of the gate, I'm working remotely. There's nothing keeping me in the area that they may not have ever considered leaving proximity to an office, where now they will go 30, 40, 50 miles out.
Mark Hamrick calls it a perfect storm.
Those areas are kind of now where the modern land rush is on, and that's why in some of those communities, particularly middle-sized communities and suburban areas, you'll have, bidding battles for homes, in part because there's a low inventory.
Some analysts believe taxes will spike even more to compensate for the loss of businesses. Open Table predicts 25% of restaurants could go under because of the pandemic. As more people seek a better quality of life elsewhere, experts say those left behind may end up living in a city they no longer recognize.
The federal officers leaving.
As big city mayors and leaders across the country sound the alarm, the future of life in our most dense cities seems unclear. But the Nielsen see the ability to roll up their sleeves and spread their wings as the new paradise.
There's a lot of access to certain things in the city, but I found that everything that I really need is out here, and I just feel a lot more relaxed out here.
It's too early to know how many people will trade big city life for small town America, but analysts do agree it could be years before we know the full impact on urban areas and the smaller communities so many are now calling home. In Orange, Virginia, I'm Tara Merchiner, CBN News.
After the break, Duck Dynasty star Sadie Robertson just announced some exciting news. What's on the horizon for her?
I am Region's first ROTC graduate student.
Meet the pastors who are preaching the gospel in a fresh, fearless way. I'm Roberto Torres-Cedillo. Join me each week for Next Gen Voices. And watch God transform a generation.
How'd you like to get a redo on your health, on your body, on your arteries, so you could have the energy you had 20 years ago? The great news is you can. I'm Dr. Mike Roizen, chair of the Wellness Institute at the Cleveland Clinic. I've written 4 New York Times bestsellers. But even better than having to read all that, you can listen to this DVD and watch it. Protect your heart? Yes, you can. Here's how.
Go to CBN.com or call 1-800-700-7000 for your free copy of Protect Your Heart. Let the medical experts show you their new discoveries on how to avoid heart disease and even reverse it. Easy steps to uncover the hidden dangers in your medicine cabinet, reduce stress, and get a complete do-over for your health. Call 1-800-700-7000. That's 1-800-700-7000. Or go to CBN.com to claim your free copy of Protect Your Heart.
Exciting news from Duck Dynasty star Sadie Robertson and her husband Christian Huff. The newlywed couple are about to become parents. Robertson announced the news on Instagram, writing, "Screaming with excitement to share this news. God is still creating and bringing forth life. Hope is still to come. We are so thankful to be carrying a miracle into the world." And the two tied the knot last November. This will be their first child. And that is it for this edition of CBN News Watch. We hope that you will join us next time. Have a great day.